What's up, Internet? Welcome to Chyld Studios. On today's video, I'm going to be talking about lenses and functional programming. Now, in this video, I'm going to go over four different things. I'm going to describe how to define a lens, when should you use a lens, how to use a lens, and then we're going to put all this together into some code samples. So the first thing I should do is probably define what a lens is. Now, a lens is basically a getter and a setter in a normal, like, object-oriented language. A getter meaning a function that will get a value, and a setter is some sort of function that will set or change or mutate a value. That, at a high level, is what a lens is. Where you would normally have, like, let me just give an example. So imagine you had some object and it had some property A and it was 3, and some property B was 2, and C was 1. Let's say you had that object right there, and you wanted to just view or get just a specific piece. Let's say you just wanted this B part. You could set a getter up to get this value, and that would and if you were to theoretically call that getter function, it would return the value of 2. Similarly, if you wanted to change this value, you would create a setter. And you could say setter that would take some value, some input. Let's call this x. And if you provided that input x, let's say you passed in 7, then after you did that, then b would change from a 2 to a 7. You would change it. So that's what the setter would do. So lenses basically allow you to take a large data structure, such as this, and allows you to peer inside of it and only operate on a certain section of it. And now that could be an object, it could be an array, any type of data structure allows you to peer inside. That's why they're called lenses, because it focuses in on a specific part of the data structure. Now we're going to be using Ramda.js, and obviously it's a JavaScript library. So in Ramda, it basically has, well, let me just show this, the definitions from the Ramda website. There are multiple different ways of actually creating a lens. They have this generic lens function that actually you have to give it a getter. This is a getter, and this is the setter. That's a little bit trickier ways of creating a lens. This is another one called lens index, which creates a lens based on an index. So here, like 0, for example. So if you want to create a lens based on index, you have to give it some value. It takes an array, and so you can as the input, and so. Lens index takes a number, and that number is an index into the array. So down here you can see headlines is the lens, and here's the array, so it's only changing the A value. So here there's actually 3 different methods you can do on lens: view, set, and over. View allows you to view a particular part of the data structure. So here's the lens, head lens. Here's the data structure right here. And it's only viewing the A part because in the lens index here, we're saying I only want 0. I only want the 0th index, which is this thing right here. So that's what the view does. Now the set allows you to change a part. Now I would use the word mutate, but Ramda doesn't actually mutate the original data structure. It creates a brand new one. So in this array here, this is the original array. It's changing the 0th position, which is what we had, the 0th position from A to X, which is why the output here is XBC. And then this last one here, there's three methods you typically do on lenses: view, set, just allows you to change a certain value by providing in a new value. And then the last one is over. Over is similar to set. The main difference is over. These are both operations to change things. Set takes a value. Over takes a function. So here, this function is applied to each one of these values, or you apply each value to this function here. So sorry. So A, it's not each value because we're only doing index 0. This is only A. So A gets uppercased, but then B and C are the same. That's why here A is uppercase and B and C are the same. So that's an example of lens index. The other one is lens path. Let me actually talk about lens path last. And lens prop these are used for objects here. So you can say, give me the X property. So when I'm viewing something, here's my data structure, but I'm only going to view the X property. And so you can see the output here is 1 because 1 is the value. Okay. And then set, if I take my object here and I want to set this object to 4, well, it's only saying the lens is focusing in on the X property, so it's changing X from 1 to 4, and that's what this is doing here. And then over, once again, is similar to set, except it takes a function, and you can see that it's negating the X value. So X is 1, and now it's -1. So that's what lens prop does. Lens prop is similar to lens index. Lens index is used for arrays. Lens prop is used for objects. And then the last one is lens path. Lens path is for complicated data structures where you need to find the path down inside of it. So here, this data structure, it starts off, it's an object, and then it has an X property, and then inside that X property is an array of values, right? There's an array of values, and then inside those arrays is an object. So basically it's an object, and then an array, and then an object inside that array. So this path here, this lens path, is actually saying start at the X. It's basically this, it starts here at the first value, and then goes to the second value, and then goes to the third value. So it says start at the X property, then you're going to be given an array because the X is an array of values. So after you go into the object, grab the X property, then you have an array. Now grab the 0th index of the array. That's the first position in the array. That's this part, which is an object. Once you have that object, then grab the Y property from that object. So basically, this is going to grab just this Y2. So this whole data structure, the only thing it's going to focus in on, because it's a lens, the only thing it's going to focus in on is just this value. So if you want to view it or change it, it's only going to view or change just this part right here. So you can see that here on the view part. When I say view this thing, what is it viewing out? It's only showing you the 2. Or set. When I set something, when I say change it to 1, the only thing it's doing is it's changing this Y to 2 to Y is 1. And the last thing, over, it's negating it. And the last thing, and it's still only negating that one thing, that Y equals 2. Now it's -2. So the cool thing about lenses it allows you to change one specific little thing of your data structure. For example, this Y2. But the interesting thing is it actually gives your outputs the entire data structure. So you pass in a data structure, no matter how complicated it is, and it will return back to you that same data structure with only that specific thing that you want changed. So it's pretty nice in that regards. So these are how you create lenses. Once you have lenses, there's 3 things you can do to them. View, and I mentioned this before. Once you create a lens, you can view a specific part of it. This one is viewing just the X part of it. This one's 1. This one's 4. The other thing you can do is set, and what set's going to do is, like for example, here's the X property of the object. I'm changing X to 4 here, from 1 to 4. Here, changing it from 1 to 8, and you can see that X is changing from 4 to 8 right there. And then last, over. what over does is it's like set, except instead of giving it a value, it gives it a function. So this says give me index 0, so that's the foo, right? That's the foo, and then it says uppercase foo, but only uppercase foo. So in the output here, foo is uppercase and bar and baz are not uppercase. So that is an example of how so that's what a lens is. That's how you use it. Now I'm going to show you how to actually write some code that uses lenses. Okay, so here we are. I have Node up here in my terminal window. I'm using Node version 7.7. Here I'm using Visual Studio Code, and I have Ramda installed. And here's my package.json, just so you can see that, and I'm using Ramda 0.23. So let's say I had a dog object, and this dog had a name. Say it was Fido, and let's say the dog had an age of 3, and the dog had a weight of 20. I want to focus in on just this age part right here, this age of 3. So if you want to focus in on it, that means you're going to take your lens and you're going to focus in on that thing. So what I would do is I would create a lens, and I'm going to call this thing like dog age. The reason I'm going to use lens prop is because age, that's a property. So I'm going to say give me the age property, like that. So now that I have this lens right here, it's like, well, what can I do with it? Well, you can do 3 things with it. You can view, basically you can view or change. Let's view this dog, this dog's age. So let's say I said, so we're going to say ramda.view, like that. And how view works is you have to give it a lens. So remember, there's 3 things you can do. You can do view, set, and over. So I'm going to pass in the dog's age. That's the lens. And then what's the actual data? What's the actual data? Well, the data is the dog. That's the dog object. Okay. So this dog object goes in. That's what we're going in, and we're going to focus in on just the dog's age, and we're going to view it. So we're going to take this object, we're going to take this dog, we're going to focus in on just his age, and we're going to view it. Okay, so let's see what that says. And yes, so his age is 3. Now let's say I wanted to change this dog's age. So I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to say the set the dog's age. It's ramda.set that allows you to change something using a value. So let's say I want to change his age to 5. So all you have to do is say, here's the age, that's the lens, here's the dog, that's the original object, and here's what I want to focus in on, and change it, the age, from whatever it was to 5, and I'm setting it. So if I did that and ran that, then here is this 5 as the output. But the interesting thing, and I want to stress this, what's cool about this is it actually outputs the actual full object. So it doesn't output the just the age. It actually gives you back the entire object. So that's pretty interesting. The last one is over. So that's similar to set. I'm going to call this over. Similar to set. The main difference, of course, is instead of giving it a value, it takes a function. So let's say it took A as the age. Let's say age times 7, because they say, dog years, you have to multiply times 7 to get into human years. So let's say the dog was 3, and we want to somehow change it to multiply by 7 to show how old the dog would be in human years. You could run this, and then there it is. He's 3 in dog age, and now he's 21 in human years. So yeah, and once again, it doesn't actually mutate or change this dog object. If I were to, let me just to prove that, if I were to print out the dog object, let me clear this. You can see the dog object actually never changed at all. So that's one of the benefits of functional programming, is you shouldn't mutate or change your values, and we can see here that even though this has a 5 and this has a 21, the actual dog object itself, the original dog object, it didn't change. So pretty nice. Okay, so this is a pretty small example. Let me give a more full-featured or a slightly more complicated example of using lenses. Let's say I had some stock quotes. Okay, so there I have some data. These are obviously some fake stock quotes. These aren't real, but there's a symbol, that's the stock symbol. The amount is how much it would be currently trading at, and then the name is, of course, the name of the company associated with the symbol. So let's say I wanted to focus in on just the amounts. Okay, so in doing that, I would be creating a lens. So I'm going to create this thing called amount lens, and I'm going to use, because I'm focusing in on a property and not an array. Now this whole thing is an array, but I'm actually going to be focusing in on just a specific property. I'm going to be using r.prop. And so what specific property am I focusing in on? Amount, like that. So this amount lens is going to focus in on that one thing. Now, what I want to do with this is, let's say, for example, I had some other currency. Let's say this was a US dollars, and I wanted to convert it to Canadian dollars or yen or rupees or whatever, just some other currency. And I want to convert these values to some other value, right? So how would I do that? Well, what I want to do is maybe create some sort of function. Let's call it other currency. I'm not going to use a specific one. We'll just use some sort of fake other currency. And so I want to change these amounts from 150, 200, 250 to something else. So if you want to change something, then if you're using lenses, you have two options. One is set, which is you just give it a value, and the other one is over, which is give it a function. I think over obviously is way more flexible because it allows you to change it based on a function. So that's what we'll do. So I'm going to use r.over, and how r.over works, it says give me a lens. Well, I already have a lens. It's called amount lens. And then the second thing is, what function do you want to use to change the value? Now remember, I'm using the word change here, but it's actually going to give you a new data structure. So so the amount lens is going to take in some amount, and let's just say we'll take the amount and whatever the amount is coming in, wherever the amount is coming in, we'll just multiply it times 1.7. We're just making up some fake data. So this would maybe, like I said, these amounts 150, 200, 250 is US dollars. In some other currency, maybe you take US dollars times 1.7, and that would give us some other currency. So the over is taking a lens and some function that you want to mutate. But I still need the last part. The last part of this is some sort of data, right? But I don't want to do that yet. And because I didn't provide the last part, I am only partially applying this function right here. This is a function over. I'm partially applying it, and because of that, other currency is now a function that takes in one value. Because over is a curried function, it means it's a function that can take multiple parameters. So I gave it one argument, I gave it a second argument, and because I didn't give it a third argument, because I partially applied over, other currency is basically the remainder function. It's the function that takes the last thing. Okay? The reason I did that is because, well, let me just show you. What I would like to do is I want to use R, and I want to map over some data. Okay? What data do I want to map over? Well, how map works is it takes some sort of function. I'm going to write fn. This isn't correct, but for right now, some sort of function, and the data that I want to map over, quotes. Okay? So here's quotes. It's an array of quote. It's an array of quote objects. And then this is the thing I want each quote to go into, so that's how map works, right? It takes each individual one, each individual object in this case here, and it's going to provide it to this function. Well, isn't this other currency a function that needs one value? Yes, it is. So we can just replace that with that. And now what's going to happen is it's going to grab a quote from the array, a single quote. It's going to pass it into other currency. Other currency needs one value, and it needs an object. That object is then going to go into this lens. It's going to pull out just the A part, the amount part, feed the amount into here to change it, and then give you a new quote and pass that to map. So this is not going to say quotes and give you other currency and then give you out just a bunch of values. It's actually going to give you out the entire quote object. Okay. Now to prove this, I'm going to say okay. Before I show you the results, this was typed in incorrectly. I had r.prop. It is r.lensProp because I want a property on a lens. So be sure you change this here from prop to lensProp. Okay, so now when I run this data here, you can see the result is actually all the original data, but now this is changed 255. This is 340. This is 425. So you can see that all these values actually got changed. Now, once again, I can to triple prove this. Yeah. So you can see the original quotes right here. What wasn't changed at all. It actually just gave you a brand new array with new objects on the inside. And yeah, so that's what this lens did. The lens allowed you to change just the values and yet give you back the entire object. So this is the power of, so it's lenses, it's functional programming, it's immutability. Yeah, it allows you to really think about your program in a functional way. So anyway, Ramda is really cool, and of course there are other JavaScript libraries that you can use besides Ramda, or you could also obviously create your own. But the main point of this video was just to get across to you all the power and wonder of functional programming languages. Hopefully to make your programs more readable, more modular, more testable. So anyway, thanks for watching. That's it, and be on the lookout for more videos. All right, thank you. Goodbye.